Today I'm here to review Colin Cloud's Mentalist magic/comedy show in Las Vegas after just watching the show. I highly recommend it, and here's why. So I just finished the show, and here are the things I really liked about it. First off, he has a lot of enthusiasm and stage presence and confidence on stage. And that's huge because, I did a bunch of research when deciding which shows to go to. And some magicians, from what I've heard online, they're old, they're established, they're kind of phoning it in. And it just seems to be more of a paycheck because they've been doing this for decades. But for him, he's still, relatively young. He's still very enthusiastic. You could tell he puts his heart into every show. And we care about that as an audience. But in addition to that, I think the actual tricks in the show were spectacular, particularly the ones towards the end. I'm not going to spoil that. I'll add a spoiler section at the end of this video that I'll tell you about later, but I won't spoil anything until I tell you about that section. But the point is, I thought he did a great job. Now you may be wondering, what type of show is this? Is he a magician? What's a mentalist? Well, I wasn't sure myself, but a mentalist, the show basically, it was very much similar to magic tricks, and there are things in there that were essentially magic tricks that you might see from a typical magician, but it's a bit less cards and pulling things out of hats and pulling things out of your sleeves and things appearing like a magician, and more of stuff like where he's guessing numbers or suits or names or words or memories by quote unquote reading your mind, and tricks related to that, guessing colors, cards you choose, and in very interesting, fun ways. Another thing I really like is how he does this thing where he makes you think that he guessed wrong, and then later he reveals, oh, I guessed correctly, and that is just like it makes you like, oh wow, this is pretty cool. So this is probably like my fourth or fifth magic show I've seen in Las Vegas. I've seen a lot of the big ones, David Blaine, Shin Lim, and so forth. And I would say he really has his own unique style that I really like. It has flair. When I saw Shin Lim, he was actually more of a quiet introvert than I thought. So maybe he lost his voice that day or something. But like you couldn't hear him that well, and it was kind of quiet, and the sound didn't really. It didn't resonate. But that was not the case with Colin. He had a very loud, resonant voice, and on top of that, he has a whole flair to him in style. With Penn and Teller, it's more kind of like whimsical and family friendly. With Shin Lim, it's more kind of theatrical. With Colin Cloud, I really liked his style and his clothing, his fashion. It was kind of like this sophisticated kind of three-piece suit, almost Sherlock Holmes, but like more lavish, like purple suit type of style. And all the designs in the background were really cool too. Now, what I really liked was how interactive the show was. There was a lot of kids in the audience, there was adults, there was men, women, grandparents, and he probably asked like at least 15 to 20 people throughout the show to interact with one of his magic tricks. The show goes for about an hour and 30 minutes, and each one of his tricks, or most of them, is super interactive with the audience, which I found to be super fun. Most of the other magic shows, like David Blaine, he'll interact with the audience, and I love David Blaine. It's probably one of the top shows, but it's more like daredevil tricks than like interact. There are some interactions, but it's less magic than like I'm gonna like poke a spear pick through my palm of my hand, and I'm actually gonna do it. With Colin, it's very much he's interacting with real people and then reading their minds, guessing things, looking at tells to see if they lie. Now, for me, since I have a little bit of like experience with how magicians do their things, and I think most of the audience does as well, the one thing I noticed was people weren't really clapping like profusively sometimes. And the fun part with Colin is he's very witty and funny the whole show. So he's always cracking jokes. You could tell he's super smart, and that comes through. He's very upbeat, and then the jokes also kind of play off of that. So like sometimes when he does something amazing and no one's clapping, he's like, "Come on, guys, you should clap." I don't know. He tells the joke better than I do, but he's like, kind of sarcastically, like, "And when the applause will die down, I will start my next joke," or something like that. But super fun, and you learn a lot of like almost like human communication to him, stage presence, public speaking, how to like behave in a socially acceptable, fun, witty way. There's one trick he did, and I'll save the details for the spoiler section, but this one older man didn't get that he was supposed to leave after he did the trick, and since Colin couldn't talk, he had to like wave emotion to him, and the guy still didn't get that he had to sit down because his part was done. So after like 2 attempts, he just kind of like threw his hands up and walked away, and the way he delivered it was just so funny. The whole audience started laughing because they were like, "Yeah, this guy doesn't get it." Now, in terms of my skepticism, I was one of the skeptics in the audience, because I was like, like many of the audience members were like, okay, like, it's not real magic. There are tricks, there's science behind it, there's whatnot. And so that was me towards most of the beginning of the show, because I was like, oh, well, he could have done it this way, he could have done it that way. Maybe the people he called up are plants in the audience, and they're people he hired to basically, do the trick, and that's how he read their minds. But I would say towards the end, he does certain tricks where I'm like, I don't know how he did that. I don't even care. Even if there were plants, like, that's really hard to pull off. And the amount of times he starts doing it, then you're like, there's no way he hired that many plants. Like, he's going to hire 15 plants in the audience? Well, it's possible. Who knows how much they make from this show? Probably a lot. He could hire that much. But I'm hoping or thinking it's less likely now, and he actually, was able to read some of these people's minds and read their favorite memories from childhood, or come up with the certain numbers or sequences of numbers and all this stuff from actually being able to do it somehow. Now, how was he able to do it? How was he able to identify someone's phone code and put it in? Those are stuff that, if we really dug behind it, there's probably some trick of some sort where, I don't know, they use technology to scan your phone or something, or they looked it up on the dark web. I don't know what it is, but the point is, the way he performed and delivered it was incredible. And therefore, I highly recommend the show. It's family friendly. There are kids in the audience. It wasn't just magic tricks. He did something that I think only Shin Lim did in his show that I've seen, which is he made it more just about fun, witty magic tricks, but he pulled on our heartstrings a bit and talked about some of his purpose behind the show, why he's doing this, his meaning, the bigger message he wanted to share with the world, which I think is really important. You want to have a purpose that really keeps you going. And so, long story short, this is I guess a mini spoiler, but I think it'll be fine. He made this whole story about how his dad died, and how he got introduced to magic from him, and so on and so forth. And even added some humor in there when he found out how the trick was actually being done, and how that was a bit of a letdown, but nonetheless brought it back to the meaning. And so his meaning was basically how it was really special how that his dad introducing him to magic was what propelled him on his journey from being the shyest, most introvert, introverted, reserved guy who would never in a million years imagine headlining a new show in Vegas, which is what he's doing now. And so that was his meaning, and I found that to be pretty meaningful. And then right after that, he brought up a random kid in the audience to do the trick to inspire him. So incredible stuff. Now, someone might be watching this and be like, well, dude, why aren't you overlaying video clips from the show? That would be more engaging. I got that comment in my previous video reviewing Cirque du Soleil Michael Jackson. Well, guys, they asked me before the show, respectfully, not to record or take photos or anything during the show. So I can't do that for this one. I apologize for that. But would I recommend it? Absolutely. It's also not that expensive. It's a relatively affordable show, like, you know, depending on your seat, $60, $80, $50 on a slow night on a weekday, and that's not going to break your bank compared to a lot of the other shows. You can spend hundreds of dollars on a show here in Vegas. That's relatively affordable. The audience was impeccable. I came on a random weekday and it was filled. It was filled to the brim. People came out. It was, to me, it seemed like a sold out show, and everyone really enjoyed their experience. So I highly recommend it. Check it out. There's a lot of really cool gimmicks. All the props, the backgrounds, the fonts, they were all tailored to the show, and it does kind of take a village to make this happen. Literally, this guy, you know, like a lot of the other performers like Penn and Teller, he thanked all the people involved in making this show happen, from the marketing people, the lights, the ushers, the social media staff, everyone. So it did really take a village, and I really saw the gratitude that he showed all the people. Paradoxically, I mean, that kind of defeats my point about how they don't have enough to hire some plants in the audience, but nonetheless, I talked to some of the other audience members, and they truly didn't think that there were plants in the audience. So I think it truly is possible. And Penn and Teller, by the way, different show, but they literally swore that they were not using any plants in the audience towards the end of their show. So, you know, you never know. They may not actually be using plants. You may actually be reading these people's minds some other way. So that's really cool. Now, another thing I really liked is how grateful he was, that gratitude he showed for all the people coming out, especially for him being a relatively new show. I really hope he doesn't lose that light in his eyes. I'm not going to point to any specific names, but there's some older magicians in Vegas where I did watch their reviews online, and I didn't go to their shows because it seems like they've been doing it for like 30, 40 years. And I was like, is that the show I'm going to choose? Because the reviews are basically saying that they're basically phoning it in at this point. But Colin right now, I don't think he is. You saw the gratitude in his shows. It reminds me of when I saw the Maroon 5 concert, and Adam Levine literally did a whole spiel at the end saying how grateful he was for everyone to show up, and to show that gratitude and humbleness is incredible. So it really is something. And beyond the magic and the performance, just as a person, you could tell he was super grateful for everyone to be there. He obviously wanted everyone to leave a 5-star review as for that, so this is my way of contributing to that. And you could tell he really was thankful and excited to be there. And when you feel that energy, you really do just want to support. I mean, props to him. This guy seems to have made it in my eyes, and just doing something he loves, and it's really giving back. And so congrats to him. One last message he gave, which I don't know why he said it. Maybe it's just another life lesson he snuck in there, but it really impacted me, because he was saying how if you look for the problems in life, you're going to find them. And then if you look for the opportunities, you will find them too. And that just struck a chord for me because I just naturally usually tend to be a very negative person in life, and there's definitely plenty of problems that I've identified recently in my life. But when you look at the greater scheme, grand scheme of things, those problems are really not the end of the world, and there's always opportunities hidden there. So I don't know why he snuck that in towards the end of the show, but he did. Now, to the spoiler section. I'm not going to give away all the little tricks and stuff. Don't worry, Colin, if you're watching this. It's still going to, in my opinion, incentivize people to come out to the show. But I did want to highlight a couple tricks that were really, really awesome. And I did give you the spoiler warning. So the trick at the end was just incredible. This was one of the ones where it was kind of a clincher, and I was like, how did he do that? Maybe this guy really is like up to snuff. Maybe he is actually magic, and he made a deal with someone and then got these superpowers. I'm kidding, but point is, the trick was at the start of the show, he had you post a selfie on Instagram or social media and ask your friends to reply back with a random 2-digit number. And then he basically, at the end of the show, went on his chalkboard and asked like 10 to 12 random people what those numbers were. And he just had them like basically on the chalkboard, and then he made each line like a set of like 6 digits, and then he just said like add up all these numbers, which we all did on our calculators, and then he had 3 different random people randomly poke his calculator to add 3 more digits, so that's a total of 9 digits. He added that to the total sum, and then he pressed equals, and then he wrote that sum on the chalkboard once again in 3 different lines, with like the first line being the first set of digits, second line being second, and then that being the third. And I'm like, okay. And then out of